Hey guys, I'm Messi from WoW Weekly and welcome to this Warlords of Draenor dungeon quick guide. Today we'll be taking a look at the boss encounters in the heroic dungeon the Everbloom. The first boss encounter is Witherbark. Witherbark can be a fairly challenging boss in terms of damage on the party and on movement. Your group will want to stay spread out as the waters around you will throw bubbles dealing minor AoE damage in a 3-yard radius. The damage is easily healable however. Next up is Unchecked Growth, with which the boss will cast a root towards you and it will lay underneath you. It will spawn a sand trap looking area and it will deal a lot of damage, so you want to run out of these whenever they spawn. You also don't want to place these between the water and the boss. If a boa makes contact with one of the roots on the floor, it will spawn an ad that the tank needs to pick up. 1 or 2 are okay, but any more and you'll want to rotate cooldowns on the tank, as the damage can add up. The tank can also decide to kite these adds around. The boss also has an ability that he will cast in the direction of the tank called Parched Grasp. Anyone standing in front of or near the tank will get hit by this, and this is a very hard hitting ability. It hits well into 150k damage, so it should be handled with active mitigation and cooldowns if required. Once Witherbark's energy bar reaches 0, he will stop attacking and only cast Unchecked Growth. In this phase, bubbles will appear from the waters. If your group has high enough DPS, you can choose to ignore these and just kill the boss before he revives. In this phase, the boss will also take 100% increased damage. If your group doesn't have such high DPS, you should kill between 2 and 3 waves of the orbs, and any more of this and you're just really wasting potential DPS on the boss because they spawn too quickly. Healers should be careful in this phase because each orb dying deals around 15k AoE damage. The second boss is Ancient Protectors, which is a council-style fight. At the start, the tank should burst AoE threat on all 3, and then move towards Life Warden Gola, which is the water one. To start off with, focus on Life Warden Gola. The key to this fight is to offensively dispel buffs in order to reduce as much damage as possible and to prevent healing from the Life Warden. Life Warden Gola casts Revitalizing Waters, which should be interrupted as a priority. When interrupted, they gain an 8-second immunity to any more interrupts or crowd control, so it's important to make sure you're getting the right spell. Rapid Tides will also be cast, however you must dispel this from whoever gains the buff, as it takes away the cooldown on their abilities, which can be pretty hard to handle. Earthshaper Talu poses almost no threat, especially without the Rapid Tides buff. The biggest annoyance from him is Bramble Patch, which is a very easy to notice graphic on the ground, which you just have to move out of. He also casts a buff called Briar Skin, which should be dispelled from whoever it is placed on, as it reduces their damage taken by 75% and it deals damage to the attacker. Finally there's Dulhu, the main mob that the tank will be taking hits from and can hit reasonably hard. However, he can be more frustrating in the abilities he uses. Dulhu will randomly charge a party member, inflicting a bleed dot. The bleed does a moderate amount of damage, and coupled with Briar Skin or Bramble Patch damage, this can get pretty heavy, so it's important to stay on top of the mechanics, as Rendering Charge is always a guaranteed hit on its targets. He also has a Death Grip-esque spell called Grasping Vine, which pull a party member towards him and do a forward slash. You can easily avoid this by not standing in front of him or just moving away. He generally will follow this up with a Noxious Explosion, which will deal roughly 30k damage and knock people back. The kill order you are looking at for this fight is ideally Gola, Talu and then Dulhu, which is something we adjusted after the recording of this video. However, once the Life Warden is dead, it doesn't really matter which one you kill either way because there's no more healing. There's an optional boss called Xeri'tac. It's a spider in a cave if you follow the path off to the right. This boss is pretty simple but does take time. At the same time, however, it's worth doing as you're still getting loot. In the first phase, she will be spawning 3 spiders, which each varying amounts of health under 250k. These are very easy to kill and AoE down, and pose no threat to the group whatsoever. One of them will fixate on a person, but you can just outrun them. She will also spawn pill orcs, which is an ad with a slightly larger health pool than the spiders, however it doesn't deal much damage. When spiders die, they leave behind poison clouds on the floor, which if the orc runs through, it will give an increased damage to, so it's best to kill it as quickly as possible. Xeri'tac will also randomly drop through the floor and bite anyone who is in the green circle. This will deal a lot of physical damage to anyone, including pill orcs, however this is very slow and easy to move out of. The second phase starts when Xeri'tac comes down. She will no longer spawn spiders, but the pill orcs will still spawn. At this point you want to just damage her as much as you can, however you will still want to kill the orcs. This is because of her consume ability, with which she can eat an orc and regain health. However, it has a 10-second cast, so you should be able to kill the orcs in time. If your group has enough DPS, you may be able to ignore the orcs and simply kill her through the heal. If not, then the orcs really are easily killable. The next boss, Archmage Sol, is straightforward in terms of abilities, but the execution can become difficult. She will begin in fire magic, casting fireball on the tank. This damage is no problem to begin with and is manageable. At the same time, she will spawn fire flowers, which will randomly bloom, at which point fire rings will spawn, which you'll have to jump over. Once a part of the room becomes full with flowers, move over to another part so that you have space to move. When you knock her down to a certain percentage of health, she will cast Parasitic Growth. There are 2 options you can do with this. For the entire fight, you can leave her in the fire phase, where the damage is mostly on the tank unless your party struggles to jump over the fire lines. You could potentially end up with 5 to 6 flowers depending on your DPS. If you don't interrupt it, she will gain a buff that increases her casting speed and damage by 50% and it stacks. So your other option is to always interrupt Parasitic Growth, which will take her into a new phase. When she's in the fire phase, she will change to the frost phase, and when you interrupt her, she will also leave behind a mirror image, which is similar to those of the trash you just killed. During the frost phase, she will cast Frostbolt on the tank for similar damage as the fireball, and place Blizzard, which is indicated with blue markers on the floor. They're fairly easy to avoid, however it can become slightly difficult if this phase lasts too long, and there are many spawning along with the fire flowers which are still there from the previous phase. When she again casts Parasitic Growth, you can interrupt her, and she will spawn another mirror image casting frost spells. She herself will move into the Arcane phase. In this phase she will repeatedly cast Arcane Explosion and can be seen as a soft enrage. This can very quickly overwhelm even the best heroic dungeon-geared healer, as you will also have to deal with the 2 mirror images dealing damage, the blizzards, and the fire flowers on top of that, so it's advisable to just ignore this phase and let Parasitic Growth be cast. Once she's down, you have just 1 boss left. The final boss, Yanu, is a relatively straightforward fight, even though there are a fair few abilities listed in the dungeon journal. A vast majority you don't really have to worry about because they really just happen. One of the main abilities Yanu possesses, which you definitely should be looking out for, especially on the pool, is called Colossal Blow. This is a conal AoE, which on the pool will be done directly where you run to. It deals a large chunk of damage if you're within the AoE, and it stuns you for 5 seconds. Even if you're not in the AoE, it will still deal about half its damage, but because of the lack of damage elsewhere, it's pretty manageable. Another big ability that will affect how the fight plays out is called Genesis. Yanu will begin channeling and flowers will spawn on the floor beneath you. The party will need to run around and run over all of them in order to make them despawn. When Yanu finishes casting Genesis, any flowers not stomped on will be turned into ads. If there's just a few up, that's not bad, however if your party chooses to ignore the flowers, it can get a bit sketchy. Finally, his last ability is called Entanglement, which will randomly target an NPC, and sometimes a player, stunning them permanently until it's killed. It only has 90k health and is very easily killable, but it still should be your top priority, as the NPCs help you kill Yanu. The main strategy behind this fight is to just cleave an AoE around the boss when the adds are up, and otherwise just single target the boss. This is because the NPCs you battle with will do a lot of damage to the adds as well, and so freeing them from the entanglement really is the key. So your priorities are the entanglement, AoEing and cleaving when the adds are up, and then finally Yanu. And that's all you need to know. If you liked this quick guide, please comment, subscribe and click on the like button. Be sure to check out our other content at wowweekly.net, and if you would like to keep up with when new videos and other content come out, but you don't have a YouTube account, you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter at facebook.com/wowweekly or twitter.com/bbmezzy. For now, I'm Mezzy, and I'll see you again next time.